This is MRN Crew Call, brought to you by Hercules Tires.
I've talked about this multiple times here on Crew Call, that I love first-time winners. The way the schedule goes, the way the guest goes, the way the show is lined up goes, sometimes we miss a first-time winner. Well, this year we've had a guy, we missed his first win, we missed his second win, we missed his third win and fourth win, and, well, we're not missing the fifth win, but he did get a fifth win just recently on the NASCAR Tour, and that's what we're talking about. This is Crew Call, presented by Hercules Tires, right on our strength. I'm Steve Post, pit road reporter for Motor Racing Network. That crew chief that is a first-time winner this season and now a five-time winner this year is Jason Trinchere. He is the crew chief up at Kaulig Racing from A.J. Allmendinger, a 40-year-old from Easton, Pennsylvania. His first win was Vegas. His last win was the Roval this past weekend, and he joins us this time on Crew Call.
For decades, Dryden Lubricants has been made in America and made to last, paving the way on our highways, in our fields, and on the production line. Today, Dryden offers a complete line of engine oils, greases, hydraulic and transmission fluids, and diesel exhaust fluid. If you want greater performance and protection for your critical engines and equipment, go to Dryden.com. Dryden, American owned and operated, and a proud supporter of racing and race fans everywhere. Flow Racing is the home of grassroots racing, with over 1,300 races streaming live in 2021. Watch the Lucas Oil Chili Bowl, World 100, Dirt Late Model Dreams, Sweet 16, and much, much more. Subscribe today by going to flowracing.com/MRN. From sprint cars on dirt to SK Modifieds on pavement, arena cross, drag racing, and everything in between, it's here live and on demand. Subscribe today by going to flowracing.com/MRN. That's FLOracing.com/MRN.
It is Crew Call, presented by Hercules Tires, right on our strength. And joining us from up at Kaulig Racing is Jason Trinchere. Hey, Jason, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Fantastic. I started the show by talking about I love catching up with first-time winners. And the way this year rolled along, we missed your first one, we missed your second one. 5 wins this season. Dude, I'm telling you, as a first-time winner, a rookie crew chief, what a year you're putting together here in the Xfinity Series.
Yeah, it's been an amazing year for the 5 wins too. I mean, it wasn't just on one type of track. We've had short track wins, mile and a half. We just didn't get one on a speedway, but we helped our teammates. I mean, they work pretty well together doing that. So, yeah, I mean, it's been a heck of a year.
That's for sure. And you touched on a couple of things there that I wanted to talk about. You know, when you get A.J. Allmendinger, you're a favorite on those road courses, and you got 2 road course wins this year. But the Michigan intermediate track win, your first win was at Las Vegas, and then Bristol, that wild one. That just shows what AJ's got going on, but I think it also shows what you guys as a team going on at Kaulig Racing as well.
Yeah, definitely. Kaulig has been growing in strength the last couple of years. And last year we started to step up our mile and a half program, especially with help from AJ, with winning Atlanta last year too. So we had a pretty good direction going into the season of what we needed to do. And we were just able to capitalize on it and keep going too, especially like with Michigan, and now with 2 in a row coming up for the playoffs, it's going to be pretty interesting.
No doubt, Texas and Kansas on the horizon, and yeah, absolutely looks good with Vegas and Michigan wins. Jason, you've been a part of this sport for a long, long time. You moved to North Carolina in 2005, so you're 16 years into this, and we have heard every song and dance about teamwork within a team. We've been on teams, you've been on teams, and it just rarely does it work where there's 3 teams pulling in the same direction and everything. What is there about Kaulig Racing that you guys have achieved that?
It's just operating as if you're still one team. We don't, when we're in the shop and everybody's working on the cars, we don't have 16 guys, 10 guys, 11 guys. Everybody just works together. As long as we can keep working on them. We do the same thing when we get to the track. We all work together and just try to keep progressing as a team.
That's fascinating to me, because you're right. I think I think sometimes just with shirts and uniforms, and you get to wear a blue shirt and you get to wear a green shirt and everything, I think that separates people. And I just, and is that kind of a Chris Rice, kind of a brainchild of his?
Yeah, that was Chris's philosophy that, we're all going to operate together, and it works. I mean, even if we're going through tech, you look at our cars going through tech afterwards, or, it's not just one crew guy's shirt working on it. It's all three of them are all together working on it. One of the best pictures I saw was when we won Mid-Ohio and all the crew guys standing along the wall, and every team was accounted for, every shirt was accounted for. So, I mean, it's a full team effort.
What's that like to be a part of it?
It's amazing. I mean, like you had said, everybody's trying to pull or push the rope. You're trying to pull the rope in the same direction. And when you can actually achieve it, it is satisfying. I use the example of, everybody sees how well we work together on speedways. Well, that's how we work in the shop too. It's not just on the racetrack, it's in the shop. It's at the racetrack itself for the teams working together. So what you see when everybody's surprised at Daytona and Talladega, how our three cars are working together, it's not new. It's how we all work together.
The three crew chiefs up there, Alex and Bruce and yourself, are there strengths and weaknesses where you complement each other? Are you very similar? Are you different? How does that blend work?
It works really well. I will say Bruce is an engineer also by trade. Alex was a racer by himself growing up. So I kind of got that mix, a little bit of both of them. And yeah, we all three of us together, we have our strengths. Everybody, has your weaknesses, and you can put it all together. And I think it helps. They've helped me a lot. This being my rookie year, they've done it before. So, I mean, I've been able to lean on them, which has helped me. It's not my first year technically doing it, even though it is, but if I have a question, I can lean on them. They got the experience.
You have a fascinating and tremendous background in NASCAR. I'm going to go back pre-NASCAR. I'm going to go back to the Pennsylvania days, but within NASCAR, following your trajectory, following your story, a lot of engineering, a lot of design engineering as well. When they sat down with you, and last year you were the car chief for Justin Haley on the 11 car. And I think is it fair to say you aspired to be a crew chief during this time period? Is that fair to say?
I would say when I moved here, that was my goal. Yes. And when a lot of things started changing, 2008, 2009, I came off the road to be a design engineer. Having a background in mechanical engineering, I felt I would use my degree in that a lot better. But just my racing background alone has helped me stay involved in setups and everything else. So it helped having the design background, because I knew all the parts and pieces of the car itself, but also my background in racing helped me know the setups. So
it's weird to me, in a weird twist, that this week we're talking design, or you're talking about your design engineering day, and over at Charlotte Motor Speedway, the Roval, the first 2 days of this week have been all design and everything. Yet it was the design with the next generation race car. You're a design engineer at Penske Racing, okay? Yeah. And this next generation race car is coming out. It's actually the combination of that puts you on the streets, if you will, right? Because there was a moratorium on design on this present race car, and that's what caused Penske to shrink their engineering department. Is that accurate?
Yeah, when they announced that the new car was coming out, NASCAR put a freeze on designing new parts. Yeah. And that was just so that way teams weren't spending too much money in parts that were going to be obsolete in a year or two. And honestly, at that moment, I kind of realized that position was going to go away, Yeah. But I was a race engineer when I first moved down here in the trucks, and actually back in the Busch series, and then up into Cup. So I had that to fall back on. So I kind of knew, I knew I'd be all right, whether I was in a race engineering position, or honestly, if I got into manufacturing, I had a design background. So it kind of was my fallback, I guess you could say, if I got out of motorsports.
You're hedging your bets in a couple directions. So,
yeah.
So you get the car chief gig with Justin Haley last year. He actually had one race. I think you sat on top of the pit box at Kansas as the crew chief. We get to the off season, and what were the things that appealed to you to say, this is my chance to be a crew chief, and this is a great chance for me to be a crew chief. What were some of the things that they presented to you that made this thing work?
Well, that AJ would be the driver for one. That was the first one. I kind of said that I used the line that, it was a lifetime worth of work for a lifetime opportunity. I had a year under my belt of learning these cars. I knew what they kind of needed setup wise, what shocks and springs what we worked towards all season with Justin. So I at least I didn't feel like I was blind coming into it. I got a year under my belt with our cars alone for Kaulig. And then just my background alone in racing, I kind of knew the direction that I wanted to go again in my career. That was my original goal coming down here. But, sometimes you put them on the back burner, and a lot of it was family too. My wife and I had started a family. We had 2 little girls at the time. So I got to be around them and enjoy that on weekends, but still stay involved in motorsports.
Lots of neat things, that's for sure. So when you get AJ Allmendinger, what's the pressure going road racing like? Because you know that the driver is probably the best road racer on the track. What is there a different kind of pressure? Is there a different kind of preparation when you guys go road racing with AJ?
I honestly, I felt like going into the season, that pressure was going to be almost everywhere because we knew how good the Kaulig cars were getting towards the end of last year. We knew the potential of AJ, especially winning Atlanta last year. We kind of felt like we were going to be a top 5 car everywhere we went. So it wasn't necessarily just road courses, but just going to mile and a halves and things like that. And then to win Vegas before we even get to a road course too. So, I mean, it kind of, I wouldn't say it was added pressure. It's still it's been there the whole time, Yeah. But yeah, having AJ, as long as everything's tight on that car and you make the right call to give him the track position too, because it doesn't matter whether you have AJ or not, it's still hard to pass. And he's not always going to pass 30 cars in, one run. So you got to give him the track position. You got to give him a good car. You got to make sure everything stays on it. I mean, he's pretty rough with hitting curbs and things like that. So you got to learn what has to be right on the car, so that way it finishes the race.
He'll wear him out. That's for sure. He gets everything out of him. That's the racer way of saying it, right?
Right.
There you go. Jason, you've been a race engineer, so you've fed to the crew chief the strategies, the windows, the options. You've been a design engineer. You know all the parts and pieces. But now you're on a pit box where that is being fed to you. It is great to have all this information. It's great to have this insight. What's the decision maker gig been like? Because now you're one you got to take all that race engineer information. What's that been like, and what's that challenge been like for you?
I think a lot of it is just the preparation. Back when you're the race engineer, you're feeding it real time live to the crew chief. When you're the crew chief, you kind of have to prepare and know those options going in. So it's not necessarily a spur of the moment. I mean, I know the race changes. The things that happen during the race can change your outcome, but you always have a plan A, B, and C, and you just got to make sure that one is the right decision for that time. And yeah, I mean, when it happens, I'll tell you what, it definitely seems like it happens a lot faster than when you're the race engineer.
I'm sure. Yeah. They're rolling down the backstretch and that pit window opens and here we go.
Yeah.
That's neat. That's neat stuff. I mentioned this a bit ago. We talked a little bit about your history since 2005. You go back, you're from Easton, Pennsylvania, and there is a really, really cool racetrack in your background, Mahoning Valley Speedway. Now, there's probably a lot of our listeners and viewers that aren't familiar with it. Tell us a little bit about your vision, your view of Mahoning Valley Speedway.
It's a little 1/4-mile circle that has no straightaways. It's a tight bull ring, but it's banked enough that you can race side by side. It's not like Bowman Gray where you have to go in and move a guy. You can actually race side by side, and it's fast. I mean, you run in a modified, you run 10-second laps. So I mean, it teaches you how to be aggressive. It teaches you how to make a car last a race. I grew up I grew up going there as a kid. My dad fielded cars. He actually drove. That's what got me into motorsports. He used to drive modifieds at the old Nazareth half-mile dirt track, and he raced at Dorney Park. He raced at Flemington a little bit and New Egypt. And then when I got old enough, I got into go-karts myself and was successful with that and moved into stock cars, and then ran modifieds for about 12 years, honestly. So yeah, I spent a good 5 or 6 years at Mahoning. I think I'm still the youngest or the fastest winner to win a modified race. I won in my second start. So that was pretty cool to have.
That's nice. That's nice. Good. The thing I love about it is a buddy of mine, Dino Alberto, actually is involved with the track now, and the track seems to be thriving and rolling along well. And I'm really cool to see. Off the cuff, you mentioned another track, Flemington. Now, were you there? You were there when it was an asphalt track, right?
Yes. So I used to go when I was a kid to watch when it was dirt.
Oh,
And then, of course, in New Jersey with the laws, you had to be 18 to race.
that's right.
And I turned 18 the last year Flemington ran. So I actually went to the very last race. I didn't qualify. There was about 65 cars, and we knew we were taking a knife to a gunfight, but I want to say at least I got the race there. So we did go, and I was able to compete in that last race. But yeah, it was kind of sad to see it go. It was a neat track.
Very neat track. For those, it's funny because we've talked about two tracks here. Mahoning Valley is a circle. And
Yes.
and Jason's right. First time I walked in, I'm like, well, okay, where's the front stretch? Where's the back stretch? There isn't one. And Flemington is a square. And so there's 4 straightaways.
Right.
I actually hit it a couple times when it was dirt, and then I hit it a couple times. I actually spotted there for the truck series a few
Okay.
times. So neat tracks up there. But I think the fun part about that is, and you mentioned your dad, that kind of had to help you with the mechanical end of this thing, and to really get the busting your knuckles aspect of working in NASCAR racing.
Yeah. So honestly, by trade, my dad was an auto mechanic. So I learned from him about a lot of stuff. He took welding when he was in Votech in school when he was younger. And when I was in school, I knew I wanted to take engineering. So actually I took machining. So I had a machinist background. That was actually part of my first job. And then had welding and the mechanical background from my dad. So a lot of our cars were pretty much homemade. There was a lot of parts on them that we made ourselves. He built the motors, I set them up. So it worked pretty well between the two of us.
I guess so, man. You guys had that thing covered from bumper to bumper. That's pretty neat. There has to be, we live in an era where you go to the speed shop and you buy the chassis, and it's the times have changed. I understand that. And this is not a statement about it. It's just kind of reality. There has to be a lot of pride in the fact that you guys built most of those cars though from bumper to bumper.
It was. And to do as well as we did also, I mean, it took me about 2 years doing my first race, just learning to drive, learning the car itself. And then we won 3 races in 1 year, and then moved up to modifieds, and we won both. We started off in the DA cars, which were the dirt asphalt cars that the dirt series used to run. Flemington ran them at one time, and then Mahoning started running them. That's what I started in, learned those before we went to the tour type low modifieds that most people know. So at one time I was actually running both of them at Mahoning in the same night. And the night that I won my first the tour type modified race, I finished second in the DA car. So yeah, I mean, we only had a little 1.5 car garage. We literally have to put one car outside and cover it up and then just swap them around and keep working on them. So, I mean, I had some other car owners that I drove for that gave me some good opportunities to learn modifieds, and it also helped me learn, besides from my dad, I got some more experience from other people that had different backgrounds. So I took full advantage of that when I was younger.
The DA modifieds, my gosh, because there's the dirt big block center drive line, big block modifieds.
Right.
And this was an era. I mean, a lot of people are familiar with it. The World Finals are coming up. There's a lot of races with them. New York State, Eastern Pennsylvania. But there was this era where we took those cars and put them on asphalt. I remember I covered some of the races at Nazareth. I might have covered one of them at Flemington. Some of the other Oswego, I think, or Shangri-La or something. I forget what it was. That had to be a beast to drive that thing, though.
Those things were pretty neat. And even when you look at pictures now, they don't look like they're old or outdated. Like those cars were ahead of their time. even on a little quarter-mile track, I mean, they had side force, they had downforce. I mean, back then I didn't realize it. Now that I know what it is, but yeah, even at a little track, I mean, on small tires, you could slide the thing around and it would still have grip. So it was pretty neat to learn how to drive on. And honestly, it was quite forgiving if you wrecked pretty bad. It was a straight axle front car with a tube frame, so it was easy to fix. And it gave me a good background to learn on.
That is cool. Yeah, those are great cars. I love the big block, the dirt modifieds, the super dirt series modifieds, or whatever. There's a couple tours up there running them now. But I also love the tour type modifieds. In fact, Saturday night I was up at Hickory Speedway watching the Smart Modified Tour. Jason, those cars, I can't imagine what it's like to wheel those NASCAR tour type modifieds. Those things are just neat race cars.
Yeah, they were awesome to drive. Even when I moved down south here, I ran for a couple years part-time while I was still traveling. We went to the North-South Shootout the one year and running it at the old Concord Speedway. And those cars had a lot of power, and it was a half-mile track, and you're running, almost 15-second flat laps, which is pretty comparable to Bristol times. So when you're in a modified that you race 6 times a year and you're doing 130 miles an hour, I mean, it was pretty interesting.
This must be on Crew Call, must be Shapes days, because we talked about a circle at Mahoning Valley. We talked about a square at Flemington, and Concord, we're talking a triangle. Were you able to hold it wide open through the dog leg on the backstretch?
Yes.
Wow, that's impressive right there.
The very first time, a quick little story, the very first time when I was still working in the truck series, we took our car to run the Sportsman race. And I was going to miss the Friday practice. So we had Eric Beers practice our car to make sure. And I flew in literally and just ran the race. And he told me, run the backstretch wide open. And I will admit, the first time through I lifted, but the second time I was fine. But yeah, even in a tour car, when you would run wide open down the backstretch with that dog leg, I mean, it was pretty wild.
Yeah, because what you're doing, I've seen some in-car videos, and Freddie Query was a legend at that racetrack. Maybe, I think you could make a case that Freddie might have been the best that ever ran that track. I think you could, there's other guys that'll argue with you on it, but he's in the conversation for sure. And I watched some videos. You literally have your foot right on the floorboard. You are pointed right straight at a wall.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane to go through there. And Freddie always said, if you don't hold it wide open, you'll never conquer Concord until you hold it wide open through that dog leg. So
yeah.
Gosh, I love, there's so many aspects of the sport. I love chatting about it because it's so many eras, whether it's the DA modifieds or Mahoney or Flemington or Concord, just neat stuff. And great to get your background on it, because a lot of the similar stories, I was the reporter standing around with a microphone or a notepad, watching you guys hold it wide open through the dog leg. So
yeah, it was really tough for me back then to come down and run with a lot of these guys, because I only raced 6 times a year and they were running full time besides working and going. I mean, I'd go to 20 to 30 cup races. And back then I was going to the East Series races. I was working for DEI at the time as their engineer. So, I mean, it was a full plate. I'd still run 6-8 races myself, go to all these East races, go to these cup races and everything. And, that was back before having kids. My wife put up with me traveling then, but yeah, no, it was pretty interesting.
Yeah. You mentioned your wife and kids. I snooped around on your Facebook page and then jumped over and snooped around on your wife's Facebook page. You have got 2 girls that are really into the dancing competition. What is that like? What is that like to be a dance dad?
It's very similar to go-kart racing, I could say. You spend a lot of money, you travel a lot of places, and they win a plastic trophy. They're very, very competitive. Their team is there's about 30 people, and honestly, they put in the work for it. They practice 4 or 5 nights a week for 2 to 3 hours after school. They get their homework done. They hold B's and straight A's. So, I mean, I'm really proud of them. They do a lot of work for it. They travel. Their nationals are in Savannah or Charleston. It usually flip-flops. They go to 4 or 5 different regional events each year. I mean, it's it's pretty big when they go. That's a whole different world, kind of like racing is. Some people that don't know racing don't understand our world. When we started getting into the dance competitions, I mean, there's people from all over that go to these competitions from Tennessee, Ohio. There'll be 14, 15 different dance studios, 20, 30 kids each, all competing. So, I mean, they put a lot of work into what they do.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me. One of my, I do the Wing Nation show, my co-host Erin Evernham, of course, Erin had a career racing sprint cars and in NASCAR. Her daughter Kate has got into the horse show business, and it's the same. I mean, it's different. There's the quarter midget racing up in Salisbury. There's the horse show business that they're doing, and there's the dance competitions that you guys are doing. It's the same, but it's different. You know, it's kind of neat. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have lived up until June of this year in a house with 3 women. Okay. I had the same scenario. I always called it the International House of Women. But in June, Hudson, your son, came into your world. How neat is that to have another guy in the house, even though he's only a few months old? It's got to be great to have another man in the house.
It's awesome. He's been a very, very good baby lately. Even after about a month, I mean, he sleeps all night. So we've been pretty lucky with that. It's interesting having a baby again. I mean, my other 2 are 9 and 12, so it's not really starting all over, but we also have help with them too. So it's been a lot easier than we thought it would be, you know.
That is phenomenal. Neat stuff. Really love it. That's for sure. Finally, before we cut you loose here and get you back on the shop floor there, one of the oddball stats that I read about you. Okay, I don't think in the NASCAR world it's rare to have somebody. I mean, it's an honor to have won the Daytona 500, been on a team that won the Daytona 500 and the Brickyard 400. And you've done that a couple of times in a couple of places, but you also, from an engineering perspective, have won the Indy 500. How does this all work?
So just being on the teams, I wasn't actually a part of the IndyCar team itself, but
okay.
I was a part of Ganassi the year that we won the Daytona 500 and the Brickyard 400 with Jamie McMurray. That same season, Ganassi's IndyCar program won the Indy 500. So just being a part of an organization that did that was pretty neat. But then when I went over to Penske, Joey Logano won the Daytona 500, and then Brad won the Brickyard 400 that year, the same time that their IndyCar program won the Indy 500. So just organizational, I was at both organizations when it had happened. So I mean, that was pretty neat.
That is awesome. I mean, and knowing Chip Ganassi and Roger Penske and what that may win means, man, I'll tell you what, those had to be neat places to be when those wins are unfolded.
Yeah, I mean, from the NASCAR standpoint, just to win the Daytona 500 once is awesome, let alone to do it twice. But to have that happen in the same year where you also won the Brickyard race, and then to see the other teams do that too. I mean, it just showed how good those organizations were in those years. So I was proud to be a part of it.
All right, final question for you here. The round of 8. We've got Texas this weekend. We've got Kansas and then Martinsville. I'm sitting back saying you've got to feel pretty good about this. How do you feel about it, though? Looking at your past history, AJ's skill set on these racetracks and everything, how do you feel about the round of 8?
I think Texas, we should be pretty good. I feel good about it. Texas will be a little different because of how much cooler it's going to be. We didn't go to Kansas yet this year. And then we felt like we had a pretty good package at Martinsville. So I don't want to leave it up to Martinsville. Hopefully we clinch before then. But we also know you still have to points race too. So if you're a top 5 car consistently, then it'll fall your way.
Yeah. Just go win Texas. Make it easy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have Andy's frozen custard on the car this weekend. And usually when we have a special scheme besides the normal hyper ice one, we usually win. So hopefully we can put it in victory lane.
That's right. I forgot. I was at that press conference when they handed out the custard. That was great. I forgot. It's just funny how time goes. And yeah, AJ, you guys had a long string where you bring a new sponsor on board and you win the race. So boy, time would be good for that for sure. Custard for everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, Jason, I'm telling you, it's been great to hang out with you. It's always good to see you in the garage area when we get a chance to talk. But appreciate you spending some time with us here on Crew Call today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
There we go. Jason Trinchere, crew chief up at Kaulig Racing, joining us here on Crew Call.
Citywide to countryside, whatever you drive, wherever you go, Hercules has the value, selection, and industry-leading warranty to get you there no matter where the road takes you. Go to HerculesTires.com. There you can find the nearest authorized Hercules retail location to you. Plus, you can use the tire tracker to find out which Hercules tire fits your vehicle the best. That's HerculesTires.com. Hercules Tires, ride on our strength.
Sir, are you aware you were going 40 miles an hour? This is a residential area.
Sure, but I'm on my lawnmower? Wait, am I getting a ticket?
No, I've just never seen anyone top 9 miles an hour on one of those bad boys. And mow their entire lawn in 30 seconds? What got into you?
Well, it did fuel up at Sunoco this morning.
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. We've been doing it for American racing for over 50 years. Fuel your best.
Ford has put the stock back in stock car, and now you can register for your chance to be Ford Performance's VIP guest and watch the NASCAR Next Gen Mustang hit the track for the first time in 2022. One grand prize winner and their guest will receive a trip for two to Daytona Beach with VIP access, Ford Performance driver meet and greets, round-trip airfare, and more. Register now through November 7th at FordNextGen.com. That's FordNextGen.com.
Ford Motor Company is making a $22 billion investment into electrification between now and 2025. Now, one of the questions I had when learning about electrification is how and where do we charge these cars up? I'm a gas station guy, all right? So the question, how and where do we gas these cars up or fuel these cars up or electrify these cars up, recharge them is what the question is. Well, Ford has a variety of home charging stations, and then they have more than 63,000 charging plugs as part of North America's largest public charging network and cloud-based navigation tools to help you to those stations. I was at my daughter's campus, Charlotte, University of Charlotte, and I pulled into the parking deck and there's all these charging stations. So the new Ford cars not only have and need the charging stations, but cloud-based navigation tools to get you to the nearest one. There is also more than 2,300 EV certified dealers in all 50 states. So Ford stands ready to serve customers and help people transition to electric vehicle ownership. You can go to Ford.com and click on the electrification tab, that is. Coming soon, the all-new, all-electric 2022 Ford F-150 Lightning. It's the first ever F-Series that's gas-free and delivers trusted built Ford tough capabilities. Again, that is www.ford. Click on the electrification tab. A lot of excitement going on in the NASCAR world with new vehicles and in the automotive world across the board, and Ford is leading the way. This weekend, the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series, they go to Texas. It's the round of 8 as we're getting closer and closer to championship weekend coming up at Phoenix. When we look at the Cup Series, 8 teams, Kyle Larson leads the way, has a comfortable 42 points. I think we learned in the round of 12 that comfortable at one point may not be comfortable as this unrolls. They need to keep doing what they're doing. They'll be fine. 42 points, but Kyle Larson leads. Of course, his crew chief, Cliff Daniels, calling the shots there. In the Xfinity Series, it's AJ Allmendinger. We'll talk to Jason here on the show, his crew chief. They have a 34-point advantage to the cut line. Here's the thing where this gets interesting. Win Texas this weekend, win Kansas next weekend, win Martinsville, and you get that automatic pass into the championship round. So a lot on the line coming up this weekend at Texas. Our friends at Performance Racing Network, they will have all of the action of the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series this weekend at Texas. You can also follow along with the sport at MRN.com, and we'll rejoin the tour coming up next week in Kansas. Again, we appreciate Jason Trinchere for joining us from up at Kaulig Racing, but more important than all of that, thank you for joining us here on Crew Call, presented by Hercules Tires, right on our street.